Carla Homolka and Paul Bernardo, St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada. Thank goodness their house of horrors was torn down. Their house in Port Dalhousie, St. Catharines is where the torture and murders took place, and it's located in such a beautiful little town by the lake. You would never know what happened here not that long ago. Sadly, I live down the street from where they abducted Kristen French, and I went to her high school. Her case will always haunt this city. Dawn Shaw. I've never heard it brought up in true crime circles. 6-year-old was abducted, raped and murdered by 15-year-old neighbor who often babysat her. In fact, babysat a few kids in the neighborhood while families were out looking for Dawn. He killed himself in jail 5 years later. I didn't know until reviewing the details of the case just now, but he had actually moved to the area from another nearby city, in fact, the city I now live in, after having been convicted of sexually assaulting 2 4-year-old children. He was in sex assault therapy at the time he murdered Dawn. Why his mother allowed him to babysit small children, I cannot fathom. She is at least partly to blame. Maybe a lot to blame. It's not really a true crime story, but it kind of is. It's the strange case of Antoinette Christine Cayedito. She went missing from my state in 1986. A year after her disappearance, her mom said she got a call from her claiming she was in Albuquerque and a voice was heard screaming who said you could use the phone before it abruptly ended. I think there might be other unidentified kidnappings here too. There's other weird stories I've heard about my town too, but this one is the cherry on the top in terms of creepiest. I really hope she's safe and well, but it's impossible to tell. Bobby Cutts Jr. killed his pregnant girlfriend and wrapped her in a comforter in front of her young son. Dumped her in the woods. Let people search for days for her. Finally confessed and showed police where she was. He was a cop at the time. Well, in my province a 13-year-old girl was kidnapped and killed. Her name was Yara Gumbarasio, and she became famous because they took the DNA of a lot of people to find the killer. Although for the law the case it solved, people still cast doubts whether he really committed the crime. What actually stuck with me, apart from being near me, is that before her body was found in the town where she went missing, extra measures were taken to make sure kids were safe. I remember my mom talked to me about these measures and how it affected some of her colleagues. It's not exactly in my immediate town, but JC Duggard lived about 45 minutes away from me. We are the same age, and I remember seeing her missing person picture everywhere. I was so sad and scared for her. When I heard JC was found alive 20-something years later, I was filled with emotion. I've read her books, and I am blown away by her strength. Bardstown murders. In the span of a couple years. Police officer killed by setup when he stopped to clear some branches from a roadway, was ambushed and shot with a shotgun. Unsolved. Woman goes missing, leaving her kids, her car was found on the side of a highway. Still hasn't been found. Unsolved, but people suspect her husband, maybe it was her BF, can't remember which, whose brother is on the police force. Later, the father of the woman who went missing was shot while hunting with his grandson. He was very involved in trying to find his daughter and solve the crime. Unsolved as well. Mother and daughter murdered inside their house execution style. I believe their throats were also slit. Daughter was a very bright young lady and about to attend high school prom. Mother was a special education teacher who was also very beloved in the community. Also unsolved. This is in a pretty small town. There's been lots of pressure for these to be solved. But none of them have yet. The FBI has been involved in them as well. Don't know the people's names, but back when my mom was young. The area we live in used to be the wilds of the countryside, so a young girl went looking for leaves for her science class to do rubbings etc. She came across a man who dragged her into an area that used to have a broken down house and raped her before killing her. There are some lovely houses built in that spot now, but I wouldn't buy one even if it was free in this housing crisis. No little girl ghosts, thank you. There was one where these 3 kids tried to rob a truck driver that was delivering gas to a gas station late at night, and the older of the 3 and more violent, shot and killed the truck driver. It went cold for a few years and then one of them talked, out of guilt and remorse, to a relative who helped one arrange to turn themselves in. I was friends with the cousin of one of the guys, his girlfriend was one of the three and she's the only one who didn't get life. People around here really got mad at our local cops for saying they cracked the case when in reality it was the confession to a relative who talked him into doing the right thing that did it. The Ying Ying Zhang case happened in my hometown. It was wild to see all of the FBI agents and shit all over town. I actually delivered pizza to the dude who killed her. He lived in the apartment complex literally a block away. We weren't allowed to go into people's homes, obviously, and as a relatively small stature 5'6" woman, I never went into enclosed apartment buildings at night either. Dude tried to get me to bring his pizzas up to his door when I buzzed his unit and got really pissy when I wouldn't and told him he would need to come down to get them. Like, unreasonably bitchy about it, not just a knock, come on dude, just bring them up type bitchy, seriously. What the hell? This is bullshit. I'm not coming down there, you need to fucking bring them up. It could have just been because he didn't want to have to come down to get them, but after reading and hearing about what he did to that poor girl a few months after, it always creeps me out and makes me wonder,